Hi there. This is a super quick video about form input when we're using jQuery. So I've talked in the past about how we get access to information that a user enters into standard HTML form elements, input elements in particular. And I just want to quickly review how we get access to that same information when we're using jQuery, just because it's ever so slightly distinct. It's going to be not very complicated. So basically, if you're really boiling it down, there's a slightly different way that we access the value inside an input element, which is that we use a method instead of the .value property. And obviously, we'll be using jQuery event handling, event listeners, to listen for things like a click on a button or the change on a slider or something like that. So let's just quickly review what it looks like. So over here, I've got an empty script, and I've got my web page over here, but I'm going to replace my web page with an example containing a little bit of input. So there we go. So here's a very, very simple web page. It's got a button on it with an ID of example button, and it just looks like this. This is a button, which doesn't do anything. So if I want to do something with this button, it's the same idea as in plain JavaScript. In my script, I need to listen for a click, right? And we already know that the way that I can do that in jQuery is I use the jQuery function to select my example button. I'm selecting it by its ID in this instance. And then I want to listen for clicks. So I would say use the on method, listen for the click event, and then here's my function that I'm going to call when that event occurs. What am I going to do? I still like my disappearing button, so I'm just going to, the stop button. I'm going to remove the button whenever it gets clicked. So remember, we can use this inside event handlers to refer to the thing that the event occurred to, like a click. So now this button works the way you would expect. I click and it's gone. I still enjoy that more than I ought to. It's gone. Bye-bye button. Okay, it's back. I reloaded the page. It's gone. So that is to say that when working with a button, it's the same thing, right? You want to listen for a click event, and in jQuery syntax, you use on instead of add event listener. So that's that. Let's continue on and just take a quick look at the other concern, which is if there is a user interface element where the user enters data, how do we get that data? So here is a text input field. So it's an input of type text. And here's a button, just so we can listen for clicks on that button and do things. So now the web page looks like this, right? I can type some stuff in here and then click my button. So how do I get access to what they type in here when they click the button? So the same basic idea, right? Let's go look over here. So this is still called example button. That's ID. So I'm going to select that, right? Because that's the thing that they're going to click on. So I select the example button. Comme ça. And what I want to do, I'm going to listen for a click event. So I say on click, call this function. You can see there's like a lot of rote kind of stuff going on here. And what do I do in here? I want to get access to the value inside this text field. So how am I going to get to this text field? The first thing I need to do is I need to get access to the text field, right? I need to select it using jQuery. So over here, I could select it in different ways, but I'm going to select it by ID, and its ID is example text input. So let's use that. So when the button gets clicked, I'm going to select the example text input field. And how am I going to get what's inside it? We know that in plain JavaScript, I would have used the .value property, but that's not how it works here. In jQuery, there's a val method. I don't know why they abbreviated it, but they did. So it's .val. That will return the value inside the text field, so I need to put it somewhere. So I'm going to say that I'm going to put it in my variable called input, and I'm telling it, put the value inside this selected text field. So that'll be whatever the user typed before they clicked the button. And then I can print it out, right, just to prove that we have it. I'll use an alert. So here we are. I say, I like green eggs and ham. And then I click the button. It uses the .val method to get the information that I wrote in here, and then you can see we have access to it, and in this instance I'm just printing it out. I like green eggs and ham. That's it. That's how you get the information inside a text input, and perhaps it's not going to surprise you that we can do the same thing with all of the other elements. that have some kind of value that we want to get access to. So for instance, if I were to swap my HTML again, and now I've got a range slider, but no button. Nope, I've got no button here. So let me delete my script actually while I'm here. So now we've got a range slider that ranges from 0 to 100 and starts at 0. So let's go take a look at that. There it is. So I can move this around, but what if I wanted to know what the user set it to when they kind of release it? We know from standard DOM programming that I can use the change event to be notified when the value on this thing changes. So let's work with that. So the ID is range slider, so that's the thing that I want to listen to because it's the thing that is going to change, right? So I need to select that, range slider, dash slider by ID, on, and then the event I want to listen for here is not a click, because I don't really care if somebody clicks on a slider. Maybe I could. I want to listen for the change event. Same event. It's exactly the same as add event listener. I'm just using this thing called on. And when that happens, as always, I want to call a function. And what do I want to do? I want to get access to the current value on the slider, and I just use the .val method once again. So I can say that the input is this, because that's the thing that changed. That would be the slider, .val. So that's how I get the input. So I do that, and then again I can alert it just so that we can see that this is working. But it's exactly the same as the text, right? And it's the same for all of them. .val gives us the value inside an input element. So I can drag it to there. It changed when I let go, and it says that I set it to 86. And if I want to play a game, I can try and set it to 50. 50, that looks about right. Yes! Oh yeah, what a high note to end on. I'm sure you are extremely impressed by me right now. So that's it. That's just in terms of just knowing how to work with a form input. All you need to know is you can listen for clicks and changes and all of those sorts of things in the jQuery way by selecting the input element and using on to add an event listener. And you can access the value inside any of these things that allow you to input information by using .val. And that's it. That's all that we really need to know about jQuery and form input for the moment. We'll talk about some other ideas about this when we talk about jQuery UI specifically. Okay, see you in the next video. Bye-bye.